Chapter 1. Training the Will. The education of the will is the object of our existence, says Emerson. Nor is this putting it too strongly if we take into account the human will in its relations to the divine. This accords with the saying of J. Stuart Mill that a character is a completely fashioned will. In respect to mere mundane relations, the development and discipline of one's willpower is of supreme moment in relation to success in life. No man can ever estimate the power of will. It is a part of the divine nature, all of a piece with the power of creation. We speak of God's fiat lux, let light be. Man has his fiat. The achievements of history have been the choices, the determinations, the creations of the human will. It was the will, quiet or pugnacious, gentle or grim, of men like Wilberforce and Garrison, Goodyear and Cyrusfield, Bismarck and Grant, that made them indomitable. They simply would do what they planned. Such men can no more be stopped than the sun can be, or the tide. Most men fail, not through lack of education or agreeable personal qualities, but from lack of dogged determination, from lack of dauntless will. It is impossible, says Sharman, to look into the conditions under which the battle of life is being fought without perceiving how much really depends upon the extent to which the willpower is cultivated, strengthened, and made operative in right directions. Young people need to go into training for it. We live in an age of athletic meets. Those who are determined to have athletic willpower must take for it the kind of exercise they need. This is well illustrated by a report I have seen of the long race from marathon in the recent Olympian Games, which was won by the young Greek peasant Sotirios Lous. A struggle in the race of life. There had been no great parade about the training of this champion runner. From his work at the plow, he quietly betook himself to the task of making Greece victorious before the assembled strangers from every land. He was known to be a good runner, and without fuss or bustle he entered himself as a competitor. But it was not his speed alone, outdistancing every rival, that made the young Greek stand out from among his fellows that day. When he left his cottage home at Amarusi, his father said to him, "Sotirai, you must only return a victor." The light of a firm resolve shone in the young man's eye. The old father was sure that his boy would win, and so he made his way to the station, there to wait till Sotirai should come in ahead of all the rest. No one knew the old man and his 3 daughters as they elbowed their way through the crowd. When at last the excitement of the assembled multitude told that the critical moment had arrived, that the racers were nearing the goal, the old father looked up through eyes that were a little dim as he realized that truly Sotirai was leading the way. He was returning a victor. How the crowd surged about the young peasant when the race was fairly won. Wild with excitement, they knew not how to shower upon him sufficient praise. Ladies overwhelmed him with flowers and rings. Some even gave him their watches, and one American lady bestowed upon him her jeweled smelling bottle. The princes embraced him, and the king himself saluted him in military fashion. But the young Sotirios was seeking for other praise than theirs. Past the ranks of royalty and fair maidenhood, past the outstretched hands of his own countrymen, past the applauding crowd of foreigners, his gaze wandered till it fell upon an old man trembling with eagerness, who resolutely pushed his way through the excited, satisfied throng. Then the young face lighted, and as old Luz advanced to the innermost circle, with arms outstretched to embrace his boy, the young victor said, simply, "You see, father, I have obeyed." Mental discipline. The athlete trains for his race, and the mind must be put into training if one will win life's race. It is, says Professor Matthews, only by continued, strenuous efforts, repeated again and again, day after day, week after week, and month after month, that the ability can be acquired to fasten the mind to one subject, however abstract or naughty, to the exclusion of everything else. The process of obtaining this self-mastery, this complete command of one's mental powers, is a gradual one. its length varying with the mental constitution of each person, but its acquisition is worth infinitely more than the utmost labor it ever costs. Perhaps the most valuable result of all education, it was said by Professor Huxley, is the ability to make yourself do the thing you have to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. It is the first lesson which ought to be learned, and, however early a man's training begins, it is probably the last lesson which he learns thoroughly. Doing things once. When Henry Ward Beecher was asked how it was that he could accomplish so much more than other men, he replied, "I don't do more, but less, than other people. They do all their work 3 times over, once in anticipation, once in actuality, once in rumination. I do mine, in actuality alone, doing it once instead of 3 times." This was by the intelligent exercise of Mr. Beecher's willpower in concentrating his mind upon what he was doing at a given moment and then turning to something else. Anyone who has observed businessmen closely has noticed this characteristic. One of the secrets of a successful life is to be able to hold all of our energies upon one point, to focus all of the scattered rays of the mind upon one place or thing. Centralizing force. The mental reservoir of most people is like a leaky dam which we sometimes see in the country, where the greater part of the water flows out without going over the wheel and doing the work of the mill. The habit of mind-wandering, of worrying about this and that, genius, that power which dazzles mortal eyes, is oft but perseverance in disguise. Many a man would have been a success had he connected his fragmentary efforts, spasmodic, disconnected attempts, without concentration, uncontrolled by any fixed idea, will never bring success. It is continuity of purpose alone that achieves results. Learning to swim. The way to learn to run is to run. The way to learn to swim is to swim. The way to learn to develop willpower is by the actual exercise of willpower in the business of life. The man that exercises his will, says an English essayist, makes it a stronger and more effective force in proportion to the extent to which such exercise is intelligently and perseveringly maintained. The fourth putting of willpower is a means of strengthening willpower. The will becomes strong by exercise. To stick to a thing till you are master is a test of intellectual discipline and power. Dr. Coiler. It is astonishing, says Dr. Theodore Coiler, how many men lack this power of holding on until they reach the goal. They can make a sudden dash, but they lack grit. They are easily discouraged. They get on as long as everything goes smoothly, but when there is friction they lose heart. They depend on stronger personalities for their spirit and strength. They lack independence or originality. They only dare to do what others do. They do not step boldly from the crowd and act fearlessly. The big trees. What is needed by him who would succeed in the highest degree possible is careful planning. He is to accumulate reserved power, that he may be equal to all emergencies. Thomas Starr King said that the great trees of California gave him his first impression of the power of reserve. It was the thought of the reserve, energies that had been compacted into them, he said, that stirred me. The mountains had given them their iron and rich stimulants. The hills had given them their soil. The clouds had given their rain and snow, and 1,000 summers and winters had poured forth their treasures about their vast roots. No young man can hope to do anything above the commonplace who has not made his life a reservoir of power on which he can constantly draw, which will never fail him in any emergency. Be sure that you have stored away, in your powerhouse, the energy, the knowledge that will be equal to the great occasion when it comes. If I were 20 and had but 10 years to live, said a great scholar and writer, I would spend the first 9 years accumulating knowledge and getting ready for the 10th. I will. There are no 2 words in the English language which stand out in bolder relief, like kings upon a checkerboard, to so great an extent as the words I will. There is strength, depth and solidity, decision, confidence and power, determination, vigor and individuality in the round, ringing tone which characterizes its delivery. It talks to you of triumph over difficulties, of victory in the face of discouragement, of will to promise and strength to perform, of lofty and daring enterprise, of unfettered aspirations, and of the thousand and one solid impulses by which man masters impediments in the way of progression. As one has well said, he who is silent is forgotten. He who does not advance falls back. He who stops is overwhelmed, distanced, crushed. He who ceases to become greater becomes smaller. He who leaves off gives up. The stationary is the beginning of the end. It precedes death. To live is to achieve, to will without ceasing. Be thou a hero, let thy might tramp on eternal snows its way, and through the ebon walls of night. HEW down a passage unto day. Park Benjamin. Chapter 2. The Rulers of Destiny. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate can circumvent, or hinder, or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. Gifts count for nothing. Will alone is great. All things give way before it soon or late. What obstacle can stay the mighty force of the sea-seeking river in its course, or cause the ascending orb of day to wait? Each well-born soul must win what it deserves. Let the fool prate of luck. The fortunate is he whose earnest purpose never swerves, whose slightest action or inaction serves the one great aim. Ella Wheeler Wilcox. There is always room for a man of force. Emerson. The king is the man who can. Carlyle. A strong, defiant purpose is many-handed, and lays hold of whatever is near that can serve it. It has a magnetic power that draws to itself whatever is kindred. T.E. Munger. What is willpower? Looked at in a large way, but energy of character. Energy of will, self-originating force, is the soul of every great character. Where it is, there is life. Where it is not, there is faintness, helplessness, and despondency. Let it be your first study to teach the world that you are not wood and straw, that there is some iron in you. Men who have left their mark upon the world have been men of great and prompt decision. The achievements of willpower are almost beyond computation. Scarcely anything seems impossible to the man who can will strongly enough and long enough. One talent with a will behind it will accomplish more than 10 without it, as a thimbleful of powder in a rifle. The bore of whose barrel will give it direction will do greater execution than a carload burned in the open air. The wills, the won'ts, and the can'ts. There are 3 kinds of people in the world, says a recent writer: the wills, the won'ts, and the can'ts. The first accomplish everything, the second oppose everything, the third fail in everything. The shores of fortune, as Foster says, are covered with the stranded wrecks of men of brilliant ability, but who have wanted courage, faith, and decision, and have therefore perished in sight of more resolute but less capable adventurers who succeeded in making port. Were I called upon to express in a word the secret of so many failures among those who started out with high hopes, I should say they lacked willpower. They could not half will. And what is a man without a will? He is like an engine without steam. Genius unexecuted is no more genius than a bushel of acorns is a forest of oaks. Will has been called the spinal column of personality. The will in its relation to life, says an English writer, may be compared at once to the rudder and to the steam engine of a vessel, on the confined and related action of which it depends entirely for the direction of its course and the vigor of its movement. Strength of will is the test of a young man's possibilities. Can he will strong enough and hold whatever he undertakes with an iron grip? It is the iron grip that takes and holds. What chance is there in this crowding, pushing, selfish, greedy world, where everything is pusher or pushed, for a young man with no will, no grip on life? The man who would forge to the front in this competitive age must be a man of prompt and determined decision. A tailor's needle. It is in one of Ben Jonson's old plays: when I once take the humor of a thing, I am like your tailor's needle, I go through with it. This is not different from Richelieu, who said, when I have once taken a resolution, I go straight to my aim. I overthrow all. I cut down all. And in business affairs the counsel of Rothschild is to the same effect: do, without fail, that which you determine to do. Gladstone's children were taught to accomplish to the end whatever they might begin, no matter how insignificant the undertaking might be. What is worse than rashness? It is irresolution that is worse than rashness. He that shoots, says Feltham, may sometimes hit the mark, but he that shoots not at all can never hit it. Irresolution is like an ague. It shakes not this nor that limb, but all the body is at once in a fit. The man who is forever twisting and turning, backing and filling, hesitating and dawdling, shuffling and parleying, weighing and balancing, splitting hairs over non-essentials, listening to every new motive which presents itself, will never accomplish anything. But the positive man, the decided man, is a power in the world and stands for something. You can measure him and estimate the work that his energy will accomplish. Opportunity is coy, is swift, is gone, before the slow, the unobservant, the indolent, or the careless can seize her. Vigilance in watching opportunity, said Phelps, tact and daring in seizing upon opportunity, force and persistence in crowding opportunity to its utmost of possible achievement. These are the martial virtues which must command success. The best men, remarked Chapin, are not those who have waited for chances, but who have taken them, besieged the chance, conquered the chance, and made chance the servitor. Is it not possible to classify successes and failures by their various degrees of willpower? A man who can resolve vigorously upon a course of action, and turns neither to the right nor to the left, though a paradise tempt him, who keeps, makes men invincible, and formed those heroic natures that are now in ascendancy in the world. Do not, then, be afraid of defeat. You are never so near to victory as when defeated in a good cause. Governor Seymour of New York, a man of great force and character, said, in reviewing his life, "If I were to wipe out 20 acts, what should they be? Should it be my business mistakes, my foolish acts, for I suppose all do foolish acts occasionally, my grievances? No, for after all, these are the very things by which I have profited. So I finally concluded I should expunge, instead of my mistakes, my triumphs. I could not afford to dismiss the tonic of mortification, the refinement of sorrow. I needed them, every one. Every condition, be it what it may, says Channing, has hardships, hazards, pains. We try to escape them. We pine for a sheltered lot, for a smooth path, for cheering friends, and unbroken success. But Providence ordains storms, disasters, hostilities, sufferings, and the great question whether we shall live to any purpose or not, whether we shall grow strong in mind and heart, or be weak and pitiable, depends on nothing so much as on our use of the adverse circumstances. Outward evils are designed to school our passions and to rouse our faculties and virtues into intenser action. Sometimes they seem to create new powers. Difficulty is the element, and resistance the true work of man. Self-culture never goes on so fast as when embarrassed circumstances, the opposition of men or the elements, unexpected changes of the times, or other forms of suffering, instead of disheartening, throw us on our inward resources, turn us for strength to God, clear up to us the great purpose of life, and inspire calm resolution. No greatness or goodness is worth much, unless tried in these fires. Benjamin Disraeli, Earl of Beaconsfield, English statesman and novelist. B. London, 1804, D. London, 1881. Better to stem with heart and hand the roaring tide of life than lie unmindful on its flowery strand of God's occasions drifting by. Better with naked nerve to bear the needles of this goading air than in the lap of sensual ease forego the godlike power to do, the godlike aim to know. Whittier. Chapter 7. The Degree of O. When Moody first visited Ireland, he was introduced by a friend to an Irish merchant who asked at once, Is he an O? Out and out. That was what O stood for. Out and out for God, that was what this merchant meant. He indeed is but a wooden man, and a poor stick at that, who is decided in everything else, but who never knows where he is at in all moral relations, being religiously nowhere. The early books of the Hebrews have much to say about the valley of decision and the development of out-and-out moral character. Woefully lacking in a well-balanced willpower is the man who stands side by side with moral evil personified, in hands with it, to serve it willingly as a tool, and servant, morally made in God's image. What is more sane, more wholesome, more fitting for a man than his rising up promptly, decidedly, to make the divine will, his own will in all moral action, to take it as the supreme guide to go by? It is the glory of the human will to coincide with the divine will. Doing this, a man's iron will, instead of being a malignant, selfish power, will be useful and uplifting mankind. God has spoken, or he has not spoken. If he has spoken, the wise will hear. We search the world for truth. We cull the good, the pure, the beautiful, from graven stone and written scroll, from all the flower fields of the soul, from all the flower fields of the soul, and, weary seekers of the best, we come back laden from our quest, to find that all the sages said is in the book our mother read. Whittier. O earth that blooms and birds that sing, O stars that shine when all is dark, in type and symbol thou dost bring the life divine, and bid us hark, that we may catch the chant sublime, and rising, past the bounds of time, so shall we win the goal divine, our immortality. Carol Norton.